Okay, we now go to a panel of 5 of us, and maybe the panel members who are here physically would like to come up and enjoy the comfort of those seats in the front. And this is called Around the World in 80 Minutes. And so what we're going to do is take samples of e-learning applications from different countries, and some of these people are people we've known since LINC #1 in 2003. And the focus now is not so much on higher education, but on high schools and STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And each of the presentations will have certain features that are general to their countries, but also there's a common thread here, and I think at least 3 of them will focus on our Blossoms project, Blended Learning Open Source Science or Math Studies, which is now completed its 8th year. And the other 2 that are not going to focus on that do have relevance there's some relevance to Blossoms, and they'll talk about that. So I thought, just since some of you don't know what Blossoms is, probably most of you, I thought I'd spend the first few minutes just giving you a little brief introduction. And let's see if this is working here. So we'll press this button and pray. Okay. Prayers were heard. So we're talking about blended learning, open source science or math studies. Spring brings blossoms. And basically, let's remember the blank check that I talked about yesterday near the opening, signed in 2004. And there's some people here in the audience who actually signed that check and basically said to us, why don't we, here at MIT, try to find out some technology-enabled education program which would be aimed at teenagers, namely high school students. Since it's MIT, what we know a lot about is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and have a situation where students from different countries will see people from other countries that they never could get to, dress differently, different languages, and maybe share and so maybe learn Newtonian physics from these different countries and different people. And maybe that would have some benefits in addition to learning science, math, and engineering. So 4 years later, Blossoms is born. It's an initiative of MIT LINC, and we're completing our 8th year right now. Elizabeth Murray, the program manager, is right here. She successfully wrote the first proposal to the Hewlett Foundation that got us launched. So there's Baby Blossoms 8 years ago. And so it's now an 8-year-old program, focusing again on high school STEM. So we had guiding principles of improved math and science teaching and learning at the secondary level, high school level. Introduce teachers to a type of technology that they won't automatically reject. We have found that a lot of high school teachers around the world are suspicious about their students sitting at computers and learning that way solely because A, the teenagers know more about technology than the teachers do, so the hierarchical order might be switched. And B, if they're learning everything from the computer, what's the role of the teacher? There's interest in job security and threatening to that. So we wanted the teachers still to be very much involved. So our program has the live in-class teachers very much involved with Blossoms. And we want universities, the freshman class of a university is the output from high schools. So for the universities to ignore the high schools, it doesn't make any sense from a systems point of view. So let's have the universities reach down to high schools and let's tie this together so there's an integrated system in some ways. And fourth, and certainly not least, initiate educational resource that involves international partners in co-creation and co-utilization. Our dream is to have the world invent Blossoms. We don't want this all to be from MIT or any other Ivy Plus university here in the US. Yes, we want to contribute, but we want contributions from around the world. So that was the idea. And let's see if we can have an example from Saudi Arabia, where one of our speakers is from.
السلام عليكم وأهلا بكم في هذا الدرس. أنا عباس الحمادة معلم رياضيات في مدرسة السعودية المتوسطة للبنين. أرى أن الرياضيات جميلة وممتعة ولدي لكم اليوم بعض المسائل المدهشة أعرفكم بها ونقوم بحلها معا. هل أنتم جاهزون؟ حسنا، إليكم هذا السؤال: أريدكم أن تحسبوا كم هو مجموع الأعداد من 1 إلى 100. هل بوسعكم حساب ذلك خلال دقيقتين؟ حاولوا وسأعود إليكم بعد قليل.
Now we're about to hand out sheets of paper and see which of you can do this in 2 minutes. And no formulas allowed, no memorized formulas. So this is an example of engage, engage, engage. So the opening of a Blossom lesson is fast and furious and focuses the students on a particular challenge, hopefully something they haven't seen before, and asks them to think from basic principles and see if they can respond to that challenge. So 8 years of Blossom started here in the U.S., but we're very happy that we have 10 country partners, and there are the flags of the various countries who are our partners. Mexico being the most recent one. And so what we are is a free OER library of interactive video lessons for high school math and science classes to be shown in the classes with the students sitting in their regular desks with their computers and cell phones turned off. The only computer that's on is the desktop computer belonging to the teacher who has downloaded the Blossoms video and showing it in segments on a screen in front of the class. So these are not long, boring videos. They're not short, boring videos either, hopefully. Hopefully they're engaging. And so the idea is a teaching duet pedagogy. The idea is the video is shown for maybe 2 minutes at the opening, fades to black, the teacher turns off the video that's on the desktop, and engages the class in a very active learning session for maybe 5 minutes or so. And there's kind of a learning objective to be achieved by the class. And this is not just discussion, it could be contests, teams, working in groups of 3 or 4, all kinds of things. They could simulate infecting each other with the flu, so to speak, generically. And that's the idea. So it's a teaching duet. So half the teaching is done by our video teacher, the other half by the in-class teacher, who follows a complete teacher's guide and a lesson plan for every Blossoms lesson. So there's an example of the teaching duet. You see it in practice. So again, now what's the difference between this and other lessons? Besides the interleaving teaching duet, the focus is not on memorization and rote learning, which is the focus in many places, but it's with active learning on developing critical and creative thinking skills. So that's the focus. There's Queen Rania, who actually was the person who invited us into Jordan, and Jordan was our first country partner outside the U.S. Elizabeth and I met with her for an hour, and one of her statements was, in Jordan, we don't have valuable resources buried underground like oil and natural gas or diamonds or gold. Our most valuable resources are buried between the ears of its citizens. And I would say that's the case for most countries today, even countries that have valuable resources buried under the ground, because they're not going to last forever. So the sustaining resources are buried between the ears of its citizens. Lots of ears here. This is a public school that Dr. Naveed brought us to, a little bit north of Lahore, Pakistan. Very eager to learn. And so let's learn from a student in Pakistan.
Hi, I'm Tanvir from Superior University, Pakistan. Majoring in computer science there, and my favorite subject is programming, especially when it comes to building the logic for program or relating the real life stuff with programming one. And in today's lesson, we are going to do the same thing. We are going to learn programming right here, working in the kitchen. We will analyze that where are those basic programming concepts are applied while making a mango milkshake. So help me making the milkshake and I'll help you learn programming. Deal? So let's get started. While programming, there might be some situations when a certain task is assigned to you. Well, you know how to do this by using the marvelous brain you're blessed with, almost without thinking. But when it comes to parsing the task into discrete logic, well, you get stuck. Why does this happen? This is because the human thought process is much faster than the sense of observation. Life experience has enabled us to lump together a set of steps into one macro step. Driving a car is an example. As it has become so much intuitive, you don't need to think when to apply the brakes, for instance.
But basically, in this one lesson, which is an introductory lesson to a high school class that has never seen computer programming before, she makes it a very inviting situation. She's making a mango milkshake, okay? And so she gets the students over the course of this lesson to actually create in pseudocode 5 essential subroutines of computer science. The first one being, well, there's a basket full of mangoes in front of me. I want to build the largest mango milkshake possible. I need the largest mango. Well, with my eyes, I can see what it is, but the computer is dumb. It doesn't do that. It's going to have a list of sizes of mangoes, and it wants to take the largest out of that list. How do we instruct the computer how to do that? So that's a sorting algorithm, and the students eventually create pseudocode for that, and it goes on. Her video is very popular. It's been translated into other languages, and on our Blossom's website, she's come back under great demand for an encore, and so there's a follow-on on linear data structures. So some of the faces of Blossoms, LINC we're very proud that LINC is an international endeavor, and so many countries are represented here today, and thank you all for coming. So Blossoms also represents many different countries, and those are some of the faces you see. We're also proud of the fact that at least half of our teachers, Blossoms teachers, are females. So the last one, I'm giving you examples of people who are speaking in this panel today. So we've covered Saudi Arabia and Pakistan so far. Now we're going to have our first talk is going to be virtual from Malaysia. It's actually a videotape. And one of the things the Malaysians are very good at doing with Blossom's lessons is bringing in Malaysian culture and Malaysian family life in the opening of some of these lessons, which really are math and science lessons. So let's see if we can see an example of this. This is a brief little collage of some of the Blossom's lessons made in Malaysia.
This is how a typical Malay wedding in Malaysia looks like.
Let me explain to you the connection between the Malaysian wedding that you have seen earlier with computer networks. The situation at the wedding banquet looks a bit chaotic. For your information, that is how chaotic a network within computer can be if there is no proper designs within computer network.
Through this video, we are going to study some concepts on forces and angles. Let us watch this scene.
Hari ini, semua rakyat beta akan membantu Pak Belalang untuk menyelamatkan negara kita. Untuk itu, rakyat semua akan terlibat dalam mempelajari beberapa konsep sains. Pak Belalang sebagai nujum negara akan berusaha mendemonstrasikan beberapa eksperimen sains dan simulasi bagi menentang musuh iaitu nenek kebayan.
Today we are going to learn about the concept of heat and temperature. But first, let's watch an amazing video taken at the beautiful island of Langkawi, Malaysia.
Okey, lihat ini.
Wow. Tak rasa panas ke?
Tidak, Encik boleh mencuba, insya-Allah.
Rasa tak percaya.
Muat, saya nak duduk sini. Tak masalah, saya nak duduk sini juga. Ada apa nak duduk sini? Tak boleh, nak duduk sini juga.
Seperti yang anda lihat, anak-anak pembelajar bergaduh untuk mendapatkan tempat yang mereka sukai, terutamanya di tepi tingkap. Jadi siapa nak duduk di tengah-tengah? Saya perlukan bantuan untuk menentukan susunan yang akan memuaskan hati mereka semua. A mewakili Adam, B mewakili Bakar dan N mewakili Noah.
We are going to discuss about an interesting chemistry topic related to electroplating, but first, let's take a look at these photos.
The process is carried out in an electrolytic cell, an apparatus consisting of positive and negative electrodes.
Selamat sejahtera. Hello, I'm Aisha. Have you ever flown a kite? It can fly really high and soars in the wind. Today, we will learn about the science and engineering of flying kites.
Wah, banyaknya wah. Macam-macam warna. Wah.
I'm going to talk about multiple regression analysis, or in short MRA. To understand the basic MRA,
Here you can see 7 properties: A, B, C, D, E, F, and SP.
Throughout this video, you will learn about neutralization, a chemical reaction in which an acid and a base react to form a salt. You will also learn about its application in daily life, especially on health and environment.
Our stomach contains hydrochloric acid, which dissociates in water to produce hydrogen ion and chloride ion.
Today, we're going to learn about energy conversion in generating electricity. First, let's take a look at this scene of shadow play.
In this video, we will use the art of baking a layered cake, which is a common delicacy in Malaysia, as an analogy to highlight the importance of using quality materials and following the correct procedures in road construction.
Asia and Amina, the cake is now ready. You can see the cake has a very nice texture and different layers. Now you know the importance of using the right proportion of materials and procedure during the process of baking a cake.
Well, that's a sample of some blossom lessons from around the world, and they represent the 3 countries that will be talking about it. Now, our first speaker is she actually videotaped her presentation about a month or so ago. And she's Dr. Zaleha Abdullah, and she's the Deputy Director of Center for Teaching and Learning at the University of Technology of Malaysia. She's in charge of a number of e-learning projects conducted by the university. And MIT Blossoms is one of the projects that, until very recently, she was the lead on in Malaysia. Through Blossoms, she and her team have won a number of international and national awards, a gold medal, a Best Interactive Video and Gold Medal Award. And she was shortlisted in the Wharton School recently in Philadelphia on the Reimagination Education Awards. This was in 2015. So we're ready to go. Ready to roll. We call her Zach. That's her nickname. Zach, let's do it.
Greetings to all. I'm Zaleha Abdullah from University Technology Malaysia. I'm the Deputy Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning, and I was the manager for Blossom Project Initiative here in Malaysia. It's an honor and privilege to be with you today, although through this video recording. My talk will give emphasis on significant challenges that prevent widespread effective implementation of technology in education. But before that, let me just highlight that here in UTM, we fully support the learning shift towards blended learning, online learning, and technology-driven collaborative learning. In regards to this, we have been involved in many interesting projects such as edutainment, MOOCs, OpenCourseWare, and Blossoms. My team and I have learned a lot from managing these projects, and we would like to share with you the challenges that we have encountered. We hope this will provide some insight to those who wish to initiate similar projects. The challenges are more or less the same for all of the projects that we have managed. I take Blossom project for an example. Let me just show you some clips from our Blossoms video.
And let us see how the arrangement of tables relates to the topology of a computer network.
Dengan pelbagai cara yang berbeza dalam sesuatu keadaan dengan menggunakan
atmosfera bumi. Walaupun ia tidak kelihatan, sebenarnya ia wujud dan terus berada dalam atmosfera. While other types of kites may have 2, 3, 4
energy byproduct. Take note that conversion of energy may be
from off the playground slide and then sliding down along the inclined plane of the slide.
In the experiment, although the heat capacity for oil is lower than water,
understanding on the concept of stoichiometry, let's think of other everyday examples where
Alia has to consume milk of magnesia 3 times daily. Milk of magnesia.
Blossom is expected to produce high-quality educational STEM videos for local and international use. From studies that we have conducted, we found that Blossom has the potential to enhance students' thinking, give a sense of accomplishment and excitement in learning science and mathematics, which involve solving real problems, improve higher order thinking skills in learning the topic of computer topology, increase teachers' content knowledge in STEM and move them away from their traditional teaching, which are based on the syllabus and textbooks, increase the number of students enrolled in science and mathematics classes, as well as enhance their motivation to learn. Despite all of the benefits, we also encounter many challenges in the effort to integrate Blossom's lessons into Malaysia's STEM education system. Persuading key stakeholders to support use of Blossoms in the current curricula may prove challenging, given that there is still little empirical evidence of the project effectiveness. It is getting more and more difficult, particularly in this time of economic turmoil, as it is hard for us to get research grants to conduct more studies on Blossoms or any other technology-based learning project. The major focus in Malaysia now is MOOC. Even so, the funding is quite limited. The Malaysia Blossoms team has experienced both success and failure, with teachers participating in the Blossom project. Not all teachers have been able to produce quality Blossoms lessons. To develop such lessons, teachers themselves must be critical thinkers, possess deep content knowledge, and committed to the effort. Some teachers are reluctant to move away from existing familiar practices, such as relying solely on textbooks and focusing on completing the syllabus. They also see technology experiment as outside the scope of their job description. This is why we strongly believe that if stakeholders agree to incorporate Blossom's lesson into education system, addressing teachers' shortfalls, including resistance to change, would become easier. A task force will need to be created for the purpose of continuously monitoring the performance of teachers and students after Blossoms or any other technology-based learning project implementation and using findings to make needed improvements. Creating the task force will require the involvement of experts in many areas. As for Blossoms, experts in the field of STEM, including those from MIT Blossoms and UTM who have long been involved in the project, need to continuously work together hand in hand. Also, in collaboration with the Curriculum Development Division, the experts are expected to provide insights and to train the task force to carry out its mission. A strong support system will also be required to foster STEM learning through Blossoms. This system will need to involve stakeholders such as the MOE, Ministry of Education, Blossoms teachers from country partners, and content experts from local universities. The support system will serve as a community platform for enhancing motivation, transferring knowledge among STEM teachers, and creating awareness among teachers of current STEM-related issues. The ultimate goal is to encourage teachers to continuously upgrade their knowledge and teaching materials. The Blossom project and all of the technology-based projects that we are working on promises to deliver valuable benefits to educators and programs in Malaysia if the effort's core challenges can be effectively addressed. For an example, with the MOOC project, which has gained stakeholders' approval, the rest of the scaling down process became manageable after that. However, the process and challenges of incorporating such technology into education may differ across countries and cultures. Therefore, it will be crucial to take such differences into account. We would also like to emphasize that development of technology in instruction is expensive. If it does not result in better teaching and more students learning, then not only is the investment lost, but the expenditure may actually undercut education quality. Therefore, it is important to be involved in technology-based projects that dedicated to improving technology use in school instruction in ways that are practical, sensible, and cost-effective. Thank you very much for watching and listening to my presentation. If there are any questions, I would be pleased to answer them, but please email me at this email address.
Okay, I think we should give Zach. I'll email Zach and tell her she got a rich round of applause. And you can ask her questions virtually by email. She does respond usually within 24 hours. You know, it's a 12-hour time zone difference right now, so that's why she's not with us on Skype. So rather than me try to answer any questions about Malaysia, I think we're going to go to our distinguished panel now. And I think what I'm going to do is introduce them as they speak rather than all four at the same time, okay? So the panelists want to sit back up here at the front. So Dr. Naveed Malik is really a co-founder of LINC. He's been with us since day one. He's the founding rector of the Virtual University of Pakistan in Lahore. His university there is equivalent to any network television station in a major city in the United States. In fact, his is the only studio that I've ever been in that doesn't allow you out on camera until you spend 15 minutes in the makeup room. And he's actually got 2 makeup rooms, if I recall correctly. He has a PhD in electrical engineering and computer science from MIT in the mid-'80s. And he's basically has a very rich career and lots of accolades. And I'm not going to read to you all the details of any of the speakers. I like to have a shorter introduction to folks so they can have more time to speak and you have more time to ask questions. So, Dr. Naveed, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I chose to speak on a topic that's very close to my heart, as Professor Larson mentioned in his opening remarks. Universities cannot afford to not look downwards or backwards to the K-12 segment because that is where our intake is coming from. Unless we worry about the quality of that intake, our universities will, remain almost teaching colleges and not centers of innovation and research or centers of creation of knowledge. I'm going to talk about the K-12 situation in the Pakistani context. I'm sure that the American context is not quite the same, but I do hear that there is resonance in many other countries. So let me tell you a little bit about our high school system. We have 2 milestones in the K-12 segment. One is a 10-year milestone called the matriculation, and then there's a 12-year milestone, which is called the intermediate certificate. So the 12 years is equivalent to high school education, and you come to university after that. The difference is that the schools themselves do not issue these certificates. Okay? There are these large public bodies called boards of examinations. We call them boards of intermediate and secondary education. And they conduct large public examinations once a year, and those results are the ones that are used on their certificates. Currently, I belong to a city, Lahore, which is the 2nd largest city of Pakistan. Lahore is the capital of the largest province, which is the Punjab. Punjab has 9 educational boards. Each board conducts these examinations for approximately 150,000 students every year. So the Punjab output from the high school system is like 9 times 150. Overall, they're like 14 to 16 boards, depends on how we count them. But about 16 times 1.5, 150,000 is the annual output. Universities obviously cannot assimilate all of that. Our higher education sector, the tertiary education, is abysmally underserved. We only serve about 8% of the college age cohort, but we have issues. Now, when we look at how the high school system works, the last 2 years determine which profession you get to take. So if you have a pre-engineering high school certificate, the intermediate certificate, then you can go to an engineering school. If you have a pre-medical certificate, which means the choice of subjects, you go into medical school. Any other choice of subjects means you go to a general type of program. You can do your master's in physics if you want, but you can't become an engineer. Or you can become a biologist, but you can't become a doctor. So that's the division happens at this time. The two major highly competitive professions that they get into are medicine and engineering, again underserved. And therefore there's a second tier of a make or break examination, normally conducted either by the institutions, the universities themselves, or by some other public bodies. And these are like what I call high stakes examinations. Now, what are the problems with this situation that you've got a large cohort coming out of high school and then entering the universities? First of all, let me just make a personal comment. As a teacher, probably the most frustrating day of one's life in a year is the first day of classes when you talk to this cohort coming in from the schools, and they sit and they stare at you. They don't interact, they don't ask questions. I mean, they're just listening to this person, the sage on the stage, and not worrying about anything else. That is because, at least in our situation, for the first 12 years, we've told them not to question, not to interact, just keep quiet and listen. Okay? So 12 years of bad habits are now being reflected at the university level. Obviously, there are always going to be the super brilliant students who will enter universities despite all our efforts, and they will swim through untouched by human hands, okay? And they will emerge and come to places like MIT. It's going to happen. That's a very tiny percentage. But what we're talking of is, on average, how can we improve the situation? So as I mentioned earlier, we have large numbers of high school graduates, highly competitive professional schools with very low intake capacity, high-stakes entrance tests, one chance only, you miss out, you had a bad day, sorry, you don't get admission. And high school tests and marks mean everything. They are the make or break point. And the result is obvious. It is, how do I get more marks in the public examination? How do I get more marks in the entrance test? End of story. Knowledge or acquisition thereof is totally secondary. Okay? How do I score higher? Now comes the other side of the picture. Now the student motivation is, how do I score more marks? What are the boards doing? Now, the boards, unfortunately, their examinations rely heavily on rote memorization. And to give you an example that is burnt into my neurons, because the first time I saw it, I couldn't believe it. Here is a question for the audience. This is from an English language paper of the Lahore board for class 12. And the question is, what was written underneath the box? End of story. No context, except on the top of this bunch of 12 questions, it said, the questions below relate to short stories in book 3. Okay. So, I had to find the book. I had to go through the short story and found out there was one story about a box. But in the final examination, the question was, what was written underneath the box? It's like pure memorization of one particular textbook, and it's that bad. I had a link in the paper earlier. You can go to the intermediate board and look at sample question papers, and it's pure regurgitation of memorized facts or whatever figures. So there is hardly any application of knowledge that is being tested or required. It's, in fact, as I say, strictly prohibited. Now, the second problem that is associated with this memorization approach is prescribed textbooks. So there is one prescribed textbook for physics or chemistry or whatever, and that is the one that you're supposed to read and study. And in fact, you would probably expect questions to come from the chapters in the textbook, no other place. If the question comes from, let's say, an innovative paper setter, students will probably walk out. Okay? So it's a double whammy. As I said earlier, look at the last line. The boards of intermediate examination plus paper setters plus graders. This all equal to huge inertia, almost impossible to change. Now, where I started out, obviously the damage done in K-12 carries over into our universities, so we cannot ignore this. I call this the curved bridge problem. Our engineers, or civil engineers, or architects who come out of engineering school, you ask them to build a bridge across a river. They said, excellent, great, we can do it. But you tell them, except I want the bridge to curve in the middle and kind of land at an angle. They say, oops, it's not in the textbook. How do I design something with a curve in the middle? Okay, so they're out at sea. In other words, they're really glorified mid-level constructors. They're not really designers. Okay? This is the end result. I'm just jumping forward a little bit. And whenever you talk to the university faculty, they always blame the system. They're saying that the schools are not doing enough. They're not preparing them. To some extent, they are justified in making this statement, but the other part, they're not doing enough on their own anyway. So what can be done? Well, it's obvious that we want to do more like the Blossoms approach of critical analysis and thinking and getting children or our kids to actually use their neurons or use their brains. Perhaps don't prescribe single textbooks. Say you can use this one or that one or that one. Here's the syllabus, here's the curriculum. These are the learning outcomes we expect the children to achieve, so the schools can teach in a more free manner. Challenge students' creativity in the classroom, and of course, this is a big one. Retrain teachers to encourage critical thinking. The teachers always, well, very frankly speaking, we normally say that teachers feel threatened by, if the students are questioning in the classroom. But if Professor Larson recalls, when we spoke to the school teachers, they were actually quite enthusiastic of doing something like Blossoms in the classroom. They were very willing to interact with the students, and in fact, their inertia came not from within themselves, but from their school administration. And the headmaster saying, no, you've got to complete the syllabus, you've got to complete the course, and don't do anything outside of that, et cetera, et cetera. And many of the school teachers actually wanted to say that, well, we'll do a Blossoms module on the weekend. So they were willing to. Okay? So I'm saying that this part of the problem can be solved. But the issue is it really a doable thing as far as, let's say, I'm again talking about Pakistan, but the rote memorization and the introduction of critical thinking into the K-12 classroom. Well, the public sector, as I mentioned earlier, has this huge amount of inertia. Okay, I think there are vested interests involved as well, because there's the textbook publisher who makes money, there's the paper setter who makes money, the graders who make money, and if the graders have to grade a question by actually reading it, whoa, that's a huge waste of time. I need to look at a question and say, yep, that's exactly the prescribed answer that is engraved in stone somewhere else, so 10 out of 10. One word missing, sorry, that's 8 marks. Okay, so nobody really wants to innovate or apply one's brain. Private sector, on the other hand, is a little more agile, a little lighter on its feet. So there was this experiment that we are doing right now with Concordia colleges. Pakistan's largest private school network is the Beacon House network. They have hundreds of schools across the country. They're reasonably high quality. They do a good job. In 2011-12, they basically thought that we should get into high school education as well, which is we call it a college education because schools normally end at grade 10, or Beacon House, in their case, they were doing O-levels and A-levels. So they introduced this Concordia Colleges network, which is an approach to blended learning. And we borrowed some of the concepts from Blossoms. The idea was we borrowed the teaching duet, but we didn't really go all the way into horizontal integration across subjects, or where you would really do some strong critical analysis or horizontal integration. We had to stay true to the syllabus because that still needed to be completed. Because it was not a single college, we thought that this approach, the teaching duet approach, would be ideal to ensure quality. That we do the primary exposition of knowledge through a pre-developed professional quality video with a person who knows what he or she is talking about, and then hand over with a prescription to the in-class teacher who would lead discussions, question answer, problem solving, etc. So that really became the idea behind the Concordia colleges. So we have short 15-minute video segments. They cover the prescribed syllabus. Nice thing is we also give all the students a tablet with a learning management system on it, so they can look at these little video segments as many times as they like. So they can flip the classroom or whatever you want. This is what a typical classroom actually looks like. We've kept it extremely low tech in the sense that there's a large screen TV, but it's not connected to anything. There's simply a USB port, and the teacher carries the video segments on the USB stick, which they load elsewhere from a server. Okay, so this is like saying minimize the number of points of failure. Okay, just leave it to a single classroom. And there's always, you've noticed the board on the side. So you can pause the video and go into a discussion mode or problem-solving mode. Couple of views. This is an odd one out in the sense that you have a deep classroom. Normally, the classrooms are wider, so that the distance to the screen is kept minimum. Okay? Now, in a way, what are our observations so far? The experiment is still very early. We've completed 1 year of studies. The second year is being completed right now. So then we'll know how successful our students were. Teaching has been standardized, but there is this issue of the board exams. Okay? Right from day zero, even when the students were excited to get their shiny new tablet and play with technology and come into a classroom which had at least a large screen TV in there and air-conditioned classrooms, we're going to interact, etc. Their first question was, excuse me, when are you going to give us the drill and practice for the board exams? Okay, we need to score high on those exams. Forget the physics part, okay? Tell us how do we score higher. So that is still there. That's the mindset. And therefore, we almost went out of our way to say, look, let's try this where there is no pressure of entrance into a professional college. So why not take the general arts students and do this with them? But there are enough students in the system, and as I said, they're probably the brighter ones, so it doesn't matter what we do, they'll still get in. Okay? But we are looking the first year's performance has been reasonably good. There's no scientific results yet, but we're analyzing them. I think they have achieved a little higher than their corresponding cohorts would, but we don't have an A-B comparison to follow. We will look at their learning outcomes with our own internal tests and then determine whether we actually did a better job in teaching than their counterparts in other schools and colleges. Now, in terms of the future, obviously a single private sector initiative is not going to change the system. As I mentioned, I mean, you've got these millions of students in the system, and this is covering maybe 16 colleges at the moment with an annual intake of about 100 or 200 per college, so a few thousand students. The government itself is thinking in terms of standardized tests, but the root causes are still not being addressed. I mean, they're still not talking in terms of where the capacity is and whether the boards are capable of conducting reasonable examinations, etc. Technology alone will not solve the problem. We need to change the nature of the assessment at the end of the 12 years. Okay, that is at least one approach that I and my colleagues are always discussing, that if we can somehow get the boards to think in terms of either application of knowledge questions or competency-based assessments rather than assessing rote memorization, then the trickle-down effect is automatically, well, then the teachers have to teach by using application of knowledge in the classroom, and the students have to study in those terms because they still need to score high. But if the nature of the assessment changes, the nature of the teaching and learning experience within the classroom will change. But it's, as I said, it's a tall order because there's this huge inertia built into the system. And there is a second perspective, and that one also probably will lead to the same thing that says, do not prescribe a single textbook. Okay, just prescribe the syllabus, tell them that A, B, or C is good enough, and that automatically will take care of some of those aspects, except you would still have people writing questions like, what was written underneath the box. That becomes a problem. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. How do you want to do this? Questions?
We have time for maybe 2 questions. If anyone has questions of Dr. Malik.
I'm from India, and a lot of what you mentioned in respect to what's happening in Pakistan resonates very well with what we experience in India. And I had two questions with regards to your presentation, and one actually also relates to what the Malaysian presenter spoke about. The first question is with respect to your intervention within the private sector. And we know that there are, most of the school students come within the public sector in countries like Pakistan and India.
Right.
So how do you foresee your experimentation within a private sector to actually percolate or get scaled up within the public sector?
Okay.
My second question is with regards to the curriculum. And I find that if, and that's our experience with regards to the CLICS project, which we are just beginning, which is also not particularly, aligned with the curriculum as such. So how do we actually, when we offer programs which are not directly mapping into the curriculum, and when we are trying to go beyond the curriculum, getting students to do deeper thinking, authentic learning, and so on, how do we get the buy-in? Because the focus is on marks, the focus is on completing the syllabus, the focus is on making sure all the chapters in the textbooks are covered. How do we encourage the teachers to look at this and actually look at themselves as being a part of the process and not getting displaced by what we are offering?
Well, no easy answers and no immediate answers. But the first one, can the private sector influence the public sector? It can, if it can provide evidence that this type of teaching actually promotes or produces better results. Okay, so if Concordia colleges make a claim saying, well, all of our pre-engineering students actually got into engineering school, somebody has to sit up and take notice. But I'm not holding my breath on that because, you get students with a full variety of students coming into colleges. The idea is to keep chipping away at the mountain. Okay. Any and all efforts at breaking the traditional rote memorization examination mindset, okay, they have to work. We've been advised, I'll frank about it, we are a federal government institution, so the Chancellor is the President of Pakistan. The President's Secretariat has advised us to launch our own little post-high school test, okay, independent, free of charge, just gauge yourself, okay, and perhaps that becomes an instrument in number one, evaluating how the boards are performing, number two, what the learning experience is like, and maybe that becomes an inspiration to change the basic experience, but it's going to be a tough call, okay? The second part of the question was curriculum. Sorry, if you could just repeat that.
When interventions don't necessarily map perfectly with the curriculum.
Look, Blossoms is a perfect example of that. Okay, when Professor Larson first introduced us to the concept, the idea was that, look, you're learning physics, you're learning maths, you're learning chemistry. Are you really capable of applying a concept from one subject to the other, which our conventional assessment never does? We stay in silos. Okay, so can we do horizontal integration of knowledge, of principles learned? How do we actually apply? And that leads to deeper thinking. Okay. So the counterpart or the opposition to this concept is, but we've got the syllabus to complete and we've got exams to prepare for. Eventually what happened was that, at least in some of our schools, the Blossoms experiment became a weekend activity. Okay, so we do have a few clubs. We had a competition, a Blossoms competition as part of an IT expo that was going on. School teachers came in and they selected modules from the Blossoms library, and then they presented the modules as if they were leading a class, and we sat down and we gave them marks and things like that. But if we use these as co-curricular activities, I'm sure that the benefits will outweigh the costs. Okay. For the moment, we have to continue and teach them for the test that happens at the end of the public examination. But I'm a firm believer that if you teach them to think right, eventually they're going to outperform. It may not happen in the high school examination, but at the university level, it definitely will. Okay? If you've got a university freshman coming in, not people who've already set up their enterprises, the 6% at MIT, but if you've got them coming in and they already know how to use their brain, they are going to outperform their contemporaries. Okay?
Thank you. Time for one more question.
Dr. Malik, I'm from Russia, and actually when I was listening to your presentation, I thought that, oh, wow, it's about my country. We have absolutely similar problems. That's why, first, I would like to give a short comment. The only difference is that at schools we use different textbooks. So the schools are allowed to choose, and there are several variants of textbooks used. But we do not have this influence of choice on the results. Actually, the problem is huge. Mm-hmm. And as soon as we introduce state examination, which is very similar to yours, I think, the problems are growing. Right now, the government is, the Minister of Education accepted the fact that the state examination is a severe problem for everybody. That's why recently they introduced those proctoring video cameras, you know. So during the examination, all the students are monitored. Mm-hmm. Well, and it's actually helped with, to solve the problem of cheating, but does not help to solve the problem of quality in terms of like remembering answers, not understanding the content. Don't you think that it's a kind of cultural problem, that our teachers and our students actually are not motivated due to the fact of this examination, which is perceived as something that is the only thing that is necessary?
We have very strong evidence to the contrary. Okay, in Pakistan, we do have a parallel system. The Cambridge O and A-level examinations, which do exactly what I've been talking about in terms of their prescribed learning outcomes. They give you a syllabus. They do not say which textbook to use. The examinations are always application of knowledge. Okay. From the same population, the same community. Okay. There are students who are in the O and A-level system. There are teachers who are in those classes, and they're teaching, you know, critical thinking, analytical skills all the way. And in fact, I don't know whether we've cracked the Cambridge code or not. I mean, world toppers happen to be coming out of Pakistan. Okay, that's the international. So I'm blaming really not the culture. Within that culture, we have these two streams, and you can identify the difference. And we do well in both. Okay, except I'm certain that the children who've gone through the O and A-level system, they probably perform better at the university level.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's save it for at the end in case we have any time at the end.
It's actually not a question, but I wanted to say that to both gentlemen. I've been working on a project, a 5-year project in Egypt to create STEM schools that try to break away from the mold, the very similar mold of the national exam. And I'd be willing to talk to anybody about that afterwards, to talk about the success that's happening there.
Maybe a topic for the next LINC in 2 years from now, whatever country it might be in, would be on the national curriculum and national exams, and whether their net assets or liabilities may be redesigned or whatever. It seems like that's a recurring theme here. Our next speaker, I'm happy to introduce Mrs. Hanan Al-Arfaj. Did I pronounce it okay? You can correct me. And she's actually famous in Eastern Province of Saudi Arabia. She's currently Educational Technology Supervisor at the National Schools Development Program there. She holds a BS degree in Computer and Information Sciences from King Saud University in Riyadh. And she also is the first Saudi to contribute to MIT Blossoms, and the first Arab to contribute to a Blossoms lesson in the field of information technology. This was in 2011. She's the winner of the Excellence Performance Award at the level of Eastern Province General Education Administration. And she holds an ISTE coaching license. Perhaps you can tell us what that is. A first of the kind in the Middle East. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello. It's my pleasure to be here at the MIT LINC conference to present our experience in utilizing ICT, information communication technologies in schools initiative. I would like to start my presentation by asking, What's the problem that we face in education? What do you think?
Education is
Of course, it's a low motivation for learning. And that caused by what? What do you think also?
Boredom.
That caused by the traditional teaching methods and tools. So we searched for channels that assist in raising the motivation. What do you think one of these channels? Certainly, it's information and communication technology. How many of you agree with that? All of you? Or some of you? Okay. This slide shows the experience for teachers in utilizing ICT in teaching and learning. This applied on 50 female teachers in the Eastern Province in 8 schools. As shown by the red arrows, many teachers do not utilize smart templates software or applications, do not cooperate with colleagues to produce educational content, do not have a blogger or website declared for students and parents. So we built our initiative on the UNESCO 4 Bills for Learning, which are Learning to Know, which translated into ensuring the availability of knowledge and technology tools, Learning to Do, which translated into continuous to equip teachers with design and technological innovation skills, Learning to Be, translated to enable teachers to have a role in their schools, Learning to Live Together, which means following the digital citizenship rules. Our goals are raise teacher cultural awareness about the ICT, develop teachers' skills, and the best utilizing of ICT in teaching and learning. And this is done through a professional development program for 50 female teachers in 8 elementary and secondary girls' schools. This program takes about 3 years and have 4 tracks: educational content design, classroom and non-classroom interaction, e-learning design, and innovation in professional society. Each track have a number of selected software and resources. This software and resources classified based on Bloom pyramid to ensure covering all thinking skills. Also, the software and resources selected based on local and international studies that proved their effectiveness in education. One of these resources is MIT Blossoms, that I participated in designing a lesson entitled The Mailman and the 5 Packets, which explain the concept of data transfer rate and data packets in the computer network fields, which encouraging many of computer teachers to apply it in their class. Also, other teachers, other subjects of other teachers of other subjects refer to the library to apply it in their class. Also, the positive trends of the visitors of my booth in the International Exhibition for Education held in Riyadh 2012, which shows so excited for download the videos and wish to or want to design a lesson similar to Blossom's lessons. Also, I presented a paper entitled My Experience with Blossoms in the Global Educational Supply and Solution Conference held in Dubai 2013, where most of the attendants showed admiration with the idea and how it can be applied. That is the reason why we choose Blossoms as a rich library. After we applied the first phase of the initiative, we got very encouraging indicators, such as 80% increase in trainees' classroom and non-classroom interaction rate, 73 of trainees provide educational content and templates. 30% of trainees collaborate with colleagues to produce educational projects through the virtual tools. 100% compliance with digital citizenship rules by the trainees. 50% of trainees applied peer learning strategies. Finally, it's worth asking, what's the new in the initiative? What do you think? What's the new of the initiative? The new is the professional development program for teachers in the content of professional learning committees practices, such as continuous group work, focusing on results. Also, the ST Standards, International Society for Technology in Education standards, such as ST Standards for teachers and ST Standards for students. Oh, I thought that I finished early. By this, I conclude my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Questions?
I'd like to thank you for your presentation. This is the first of the ones I've heard where it's a really strong emphasis on instructional design. So I appreciate your efforts there.
Thank you.
And the work with ISTE. When you are giving this professional development to teachers, and like with any kind of profession, you have specializations. So some teachers really take to instructional design and development of materials, but some not so much. Do you have any way of helping remediate those that maybe are not so successful in that, in doing the instructional design for themselves, or having resources that help them carry forward so they can still be effective in the classroom with quality content? I'll take my answer.
Goes to 3:30.
We begin our initiative by selecting the teachers that they want to involve the ICT in their lessons. So when the teacher success in this way, the other teacher encouraging with them, and they apply the peer strategy, learning strategy. That's why the other teachers that will not with us in the first phase, they will come now in the second phase. I hope I answer your question.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and I was really pleased to see that you were doing this project with girls in schools. And I was just wondering why you chose to concentrate this project at first on girls, and is there a lot of enthusiasm on their part to participate?
Yeah, because we are in Saudi Arabia completely separate with male and female, so I am supervisor for them female only.
Okay, thank you.
Time for one more question. Going once, going twice, gone. Thank you. Okay, another co-founder, basically, of LINC, Dr. Cliff Missen. And I'll let you read his impressive biography, but I just want to say that he's the inventor of the eGranary digital project. This is a solution to delivering quality educational resources to parts of the world that have no internet linkages or very marginal internet linkages. He's going to describe this. It's the WiderNet project that he's going to talk about, digital communications to developing countries. And he's installed this in over 1,000 schools, hospitals, clinics, and universities around the globe. And maybe you'll talk about the next place that you're going to install some of these things. I think it's quite fascinating. You know what I'm referring to? Yeah, okay. Cliff.
Well,
put it in the pocket.
Yeah, I can probably put it in there. Can't take it with me, though. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here. Dick, thanks for inviting me to be on your panel. I really enjoy coming to LINC because every time I do, I hear a lot of really brilliant ideas, except my own, of course. And I get a chance to sit with people who are really doing the work in the field and see how all these disparate parts and pieces might fit together and how we can synthesize them. So I really enjoy this conference a lot. Thank you. And there's a button I'm supposed to press right here. Okay, cool. So I run this thing called the WiderNet project. It actually has two portions. I teach at the University of North Carolina in information and library science, and we have a lab there where we do development and research and the like. And then we have a nonprofit project that we spun out of that does all the manufacturing and distribution, because as you can imagine, inside a cumbersome thing like a university, buying 1,000 hard drives and selling them to people gets awkward. So we have these two organizations that we work with. I have sort of two things I like to do today. What do you call it? To comfort the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. Talk about my project and also talk about some observations that I bring from the field. So the eGranary Digital Library, I brought one here. This is it. This is 32 million educational resources in a box. You can pass it around. You guys feel how heavy 32 million documents are. And this just it started with the idea of sending some DVDs to some friends in Africa who I taught with there. And it grew into now a 4 terabyte, pretty soon 6 terabyte collection. What we're doing is we're replacing bandwidth with storewidth. We're taking information from the internet, harvesting it, with permission of course, and putting it into these institutions, where when they build their local area network, they automatically have 100 megabyte or a gigabit of internet or of network connectivity, so they can access this information wickedly fast. What have we got in here? And this is the idea. Local area network, tens, hundreds, thousands of computers sharing this one collection, no internet costs, and it's available. It's very reliable even when the internet connection is broken. So what we have, permission from over 2,000 authors and publishers so far, MIT Blossoms, yay, being one of them. Okay, there's over 50,000 books, hundreds of journals, and it's got a built-in search engine and a catalog, tons of librarianship, probably about 60,000 hours worth of librarianship, either from professionals or volunteers. So it looks and acts like the internet, it's just in a box. Most importantly, we've added something called the Community Information Platform. This allows sort of Web 2.0 technology. People can make their own websites and add their own websites to that box and share it with each other, upload their own content, translate content, create syllabi, all of that. So it's a very dynamic device. Every time I go out to the field with this thing, I will do that this summer, I go out and I introduce it to my colleagues and I say, hey, look at all these fantastic new things we've added. And they say, oh, that's fantastic. And then they say, oh, but we have more things. So I always have a running list of about 150 new features to add. And that's how we have people from around the world helping us to do that. Right now there's about 1,200 installations around the world. And it just keeps growing. You know, Papua New Guinea over there in the corner, that's where I'm heading in a couple of weeks to do some training. We even have it in 15 prisons here in the United States, another place where people can't access the internet because, well, some of them are there because they were on the internet. So we calculate from reporting we get from the institutions that have the e-granary, between 3 and 4 million people have access to it. One of the things that we found we definitely need to do up front is spend a lot of time helping people to organize information, whether one's connecting to the internet or to the e-granary for the first time, it's drinking from a fire hose. And so coming up with collections that are specific to groups of people that meet local community needs is really key. And so we've spent a lot of time working with our partners to come up with collections that fit that. We call this solidarity librarianship. Finding out what they need, what their community needs, what can be garnered from the local born digital materials that they have, what we can supplement from the internet and the like. One of the things that we did this last year was put together an Ebola chip. That's kind of an awkward name, but here, you want an Ebola chip? No. But we put together a special chip, 25,000 resources on everything Ebola, from posters on how to wash your hands, songs and music videos that STARS had put together to teach people about Ebola, to tons of research from the CDC and Doctors Without Borders. Put it all on one chip, and with that, it was a special project. We got all of these organizations to agree that everything on the chip would be fully copyable out in the field. So when somebody had the chip, they could hand it to somebody and they could make a copy of it, and we could spread the information faster than the disease. Another one, I just got this picture a few days ago from Ethiopia. One of our colleagues there put together a program on teaching girls how to code. And they are all wearing, I've got mine here. I had to take it off because of the microphone, but quite proud of it. Here is a little e-granary on a string, about 40,000 resources for teaching coding with 30 or 40 pieces of software, everything all on one little device, lots of websites with tutorials on just a little thing like that. And this is what we're focusing on now. We're looking at growing and shrinking the e-granary because there's more to put on there. This month we're working on all the TED Talks. Okay, so and we just had a university in Georgia contact us, and they say their medical school is now requiring all of the students to make some module that teaches some bit of medicine as a part of their coursework. And they wanted to know if they could put all these modules on the e-granary, and of course I said, yeah, all for that. So, measurables. This is the only measurable I really pay attention to. 80% of the granaries that have been installed over the last 2 years have been installed by somebody who already had one, and they were installing more. And so it's when people see this, when people out in the field use this, they know why they need it, they understand it, they use it, and they tell others about it. The other thing we're doing is we've developed a network of field associates. We have, I think, 13 right now, young people with entrepreneurial skills, good communication skills, maybe some technical talent, who promote the idea around their communities, help with the installation, get people over that initial hesitancy, and then most importantly, do hands-on training, sit at their elbow and demonstrate to them how to use digital information. So you can see Jennifer in Nigeria has over 100 installations under belt, Mulugeta in Ethiopia, 60. They're making good money, and they're spreading information. So let me change the topic a little bit. This is that 7-minute moment, right, where you're supposed to have been distracted. So let me just interact with you on something here. How many of you have high-speed bandwidth in your home? Hands up, hands up, hands up. Okay. In your home. Keep them up there. Okay, this is workout here. Okay. How many of you, other hand, okay, how many of you can make a phone call anywhere in your country and not have to consider the cost? Okay. Now you take those two hands, you put them together, and you congratulate yourself for being amongst some of the most privileged people on the planet. And I want to make this point because, and even during this conference, I hear things slipping around. People saying, well, we're putting everything online, which means everybody has access to it. It's like, no. We have to remain focused on the fact that 5 billion people still don't have the internet. And they can't wait for it. People are literally starving. People are dying for information out there. Young, brilliant people are having a whole lot of opportunity to bypass them because they can't get access to information. This is from World Bank data, just showing sort of connectivity around the world. And what we have in that top purple line, that's all the rich people. And we're up to like 80% connectivity in most of the rich countries. The yellow line are the middle-income countries, some of Asia, so Central Europe, places like that. And then at the bottom, we've got the poorest countries in the world. Places like Sierra Leone, where connectivity is still under 1%. Places like Liberia, where I visited a school recently, it's a school that teaches teachers, and they pay $120,000 a year for half a megabit of internet connectivity. But their electricity is only on for 4 hours a day. It's a huge expense. They really can't afford it. Systems are largely unreliable in the poorest places of the world. The internet goes out for weeks. Electricity goes out several times a day. I'll be giving a presentation like this in pick any university. And boom, power will go off, and then somebody will race out and turn on the generator. 15 minutes later, we'll get back to work. Yeah, I've not neglected my chalkboard skills because you need them. In one study in 2013, 34% of hospitals were found to have reliable electricity in sub-Saharan Africa. That's just an indicator of the core problems that they have to work with. In a lot of these places, basic needs have yet to be met. I visited 24 hospitals in sub-Saharan Africa in the last 10 years, or 24 universities. Not one of them had potable water coming from the taps. So they have some incredible basic needs. And I point this out to say, when we pressurize people in other countries to think, well, you guys just need to get on the internet, right? We have to remember that what we're asking them to do is telling somebody who doesn't have books that they should be on the internet is like telling somebody who doesn't have water, you should try Perrier. Right? It's the most expensive way of getting access to information. So schools lack books, communities lack libraries. Everywhere I go, I hear people complain about a lack of a reading culture. People just aren't reading. And this is a friend in Piki, Ghana. This is his library. There's 5 schools in his town, and he's the library, and this is the library. That's everything right there. That's what he has to work with. This map here shows books borrowed worldwide, and it inflates the the countries based on the amount of books that are being borrowed. So you can see Japan is that purple thing over there. A lot of book borrowing going on over there. India, woohoo, you're doing a great job. Africa is that little slender thing. And South America, huge land masses, where when people don't have the internet, they also don't have a lot of other things as well. And we just need to keep that in mind. Technology, this slide here, the 3 lines, the green line is developing country costs, the blue line is developed world costs, and orange is the world. So what we see is that the cost of mobile data around the world is pretty much the same. To supply mobile data, to purchase mobile data, it's pretty much the same everywhere. The difference is this: when we look at what the cost of data is versus people's income, so this is their GNI per capita, People are paying 5 to 10 times what those of us here in the U.S. or in the more developed countries are paying. So when we ask people, hey, you should get on the internet and try this or that, right? Again, we're saying you should spend way much more money than I do to do this. This is the cost of fixed broadband compared to GNI. And in some countries in Africa, Mauritius, Seychelles, it's about the same as we would pay like here in the U.S. About 2% of our annual budgets go towards our income, goes towards information access. But when you get up to Kenya, it's 50% of the average GNI. And when you get into some of the other countries down the road there, we're talking 2, 3, 4 times the average income just to have fixed broadband. And what are people doing with this broadband? I do lots of network sniffing at universities, and I can tell you that it pretty much matches this. Let's watch some YouTube videos, do some social media apps, okay, do some gaming. What does that tell us about who's online? It is mostly, and this is who Facebook is marketing to now, the children of wealthy individuals. Everybody has a cell phone. This is something we need to bury, and bury fast, because everybody doesn't have a cell phone. This is a really great study that came out this last year, in which they looked at this whole idea of like everybody in China has a cell phone. And if we look at this, the first big black line here, total population of China, 1.26 billion, of which 87%, next line, are under a cell tower somewhere, okay? But the addressable population is less than that because, of course, some people are young and probably wouldn't have a phone in the first place. Now let's go to the far side and look at that first blue line, okay? Registered mobile connections, 886 registered mobile connections. Only 762 are actually active, in which like somebody's made a call in the last year. But the average subscriber has to have at least 2 SIM cards if they want to get good coverage around the country. When I go to Nigeria, I have 4 SIM cards. So once you do the math, we wind up with about 32% of cell phone penetration in a country that we're told is highly connected. The other thing to consider, the feature phone rules. Smartphone penetration is only about 15% in most poor countries. And so people can do text messaging, SMS transactions, banking is very popular, things that involve little bits of text. But send me a PDF file, that's not going to happen, right? Flashing, where people just dial each other up and then hang up the phone, that's one of the most popular forms of using the phone. And then phone calls. And then finally, can anybody help me just like banish this stuff? All this Google going to launch a blimp or a balloon and they're going to save the third world. Come on, how many here are getting their internet from a balloon right now? It hasn't happened. Or from a blimp, or what. But for some reason, these organizations can come up with these ideas and say, hey, we're going to do some fantastic thing, and it's going to save the third world. And in fact, all it does is suck the oxygen out of the room and change the way people do their decision making. What we really need is terrestrial networking all over Africa. It's going to take time, it's going to take money, it needs to be built up, and we don't need bogus stuff like this. All right. There. I hope I've afflicted some of you comfortable people and comforted some of you afflicted. Thanks very much.
We're running a little bit late, so I think we have room for maybe one question. Going once. Okay. Racing to the microphone. One question.
Yeah, can I get my e-granary back too?
Oh yeah, did you get it?
No, just a comment is not just about the internet, but also I think in a lot of countries having a broadband, the basic broadband against a high broadband is totally expensive. Then putting this kind of solution in school that pays $50 monthly instead of $300 could be a good solution. We have done this in 2,000 schools in Latin America, like a cash server. How do you see these kind of solutions implementing, not just in countries that they don't have internet, but have very slow internet as an option?
So having slow internet, paying less for slow internet,
Yeah,
As
for
a-
example,
yeah.
slow internet pays $50 monthly for a school, but high-speed internet pays $250 per school.
I am more interested in what I would call hybrid solutions, where somebody might have a cell phone with 1 million documents on board, all the resources they need for taking a course. They might actually take a MOOC on their phone, and that data gets stored on the phone. And then once a day, that phone dials up and delivers the information, upload, download. And so that person's only spending 2 minutes online, right? So they're spending less on the internet, but it's high speed anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We can discuss later what we could do in Latin America as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, last but certainly not least is Dr. Bakary Diallo, and he's been a friend of LINC for probably half of LINC's life, right? He's been working in the education sector for the past 25 years. He joined the African Virtual University, AVU, and he'll tell you about it, and specialized in distance learning in August 2005. So he's been with the AVU for 11 years. And he's held several senior positions, but now he's the boss. He's CEO and rector. That came 2007. And he's going to tell you all about it and conclude our session today. Bakary.
Thank you. Thank you.